Hi, I'm Trent Kusters, co-founder and studio director at League of Geeks. Welcome to the Game Maker's Notebook. Today I'm here at GDC and I've just had a fantastic conversation with Wren Brier and Tim Dawson of Witchbeam Games, who've just released Unpacking to astonishing success. We spoke about a range of things, of course, including how they got into games and how they found themselves making Unpacking. We spoke about a bunch of milestones along their development, how they maintained interest in the game and towards a release. And also we spoke a lot about the systems design and narrative design, specifically around how to balance that strong player expression and the sense of character that the game has. And finally, some tips on how to work with your partner. So please enjoy the podcast. It was absolutely wonderful talking to these two. We're here at GDC 2022. We're back here in person live. We're actually in the Moscone Center in one of their big vacuous rooms here. And I have the distinct privilege of being here with Wren and Tim of Witchbeam Games, who have just recently released to astounding success, which we're going to talk about today here on the podcast, Unpacking. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Of course, of course. So we're actually just going to dive straight into it as we do here at the AIAS Game Maker's Notebook podcast by talking a little bit about how you both got into games. So, and you have quite an interesting tale as well, the both of you, actually all of the Witchbeam teams. So why don't we start with you, Wren? How did you get into games? How did you find yourself here?
Well, I studied games at university. Well, actually, I studied animation at university, but it was kind of at a games school. It was Quantum SAE in Brisbane, in Australia. And I forget that we're like not just in Australia by default here. And I graduated with really poor timing right after the global financial crisis and couldn't find work for a pretty long time, nothing solid for several years. So I got another degree, also in animation, a master's. Then I finally found work at Halfbrick as a junior animator. And I did this because I was really dumb and didn't know how to network or anything. I actually got this job through a Seek job ad.
Right, nice, which is the job advertisement platform in Australia.
Yes.
And Halfbrick is of Jetpack Joyride, Fruit Ninja fame as well. Very storied studio in Queensland, Brisbane.
Yeah, so I had tried applying there before, but not ever while they were actually hiring artists. And that time they were actually hiring, so I got interviewed and
got the job.
Yeah, got the job. So I worked there for 3 years.
Mm-hmm. And you were on Jetpack Joyride as well, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was on both the Jetpack and the Fruit Ninja teams. Although the Fruit Ninja one was very brief. I started on that team and then got trained up in pixel art along with another artist, and I really took to it. I really liked it, and I was like, hey, can I just move to the Jetpack team and just do that? And you don't have to share the two artists between the two teams. And they were like, yeah, sure. So
awesome.
Yeah, I got to learn from the original artist of Jetpack and replaced him on the team.
You usurped him, or no?
Oh no, he left. He was there just to train us up that we could replace him. Fantastic. And so he ended up training me up, and I ended up replacing him. And
so were you, because Jetpack Joyride is a beautiful pixel art game, right? Congratulations, it looks fantastic.
Thanks.
Were you already quite versed in pixel art beforehand? Was it an interest of yours, or was it under the tutelage of this artist that you sort of picked it up on the project?
Mostly under the tutelage of this artist.
Oh, wow.
I did a little bit of pixel art before that, here and there. I actually did a little, I ran a little pixel art workshop, a one-day workshop at a local, community center thing. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't very good. I only did a tiny bit of pixel art. I was just an artist.
Yeah.
And yeah, on that project, I really picked it up. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I got to touch every bit of the project, from doing costumes for the character Barry to making new backgrounds. I got to work on, they did a crossover with they did a special event with Back to the Future with Universal Studios. So I got to design, actually not design, the concept artist designed the backgrounds, but I got to make them in pixel art, make all the backgrounds of what's it called? Twin Pines.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The city, yeah.
Fantastic.
And I got to make the DeLorean and make the hoverboard. That was really fun.
Talk about a career highlight. That's awesome. They didn't send you back in time as well. They weren't like pick your time period. Those universal perks. No?
Unfortunately, not. They gave us T-shirts.
All right, there you go. Which is just as good. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
All right, great. So you're at Halfbrick, and then how did you find yourself? Where did you find yourself next?
So next, I kind of decided to strike out on my own. And here are just like some weird muddled years where
which often happens when you decide to strike it out on your own, right? They don't tell you that.
Yeah. So I just, I worked at like a series of, small companies or like various like people just starting out on like an indie team or something. Mm-hmm. And I just worked as an artist on various little teams. Mm-hmm. What was the order of things? Yeah, like I briefly, or also on bigger teams. So like I worked at this tiny company called Smithsoft and worked on a game called Pandora's Books, which didn't properly come out, I think. You cannot find it anywhere anymore.
Yep, it happens in video games, right?
Yeah, it was not good. After that, I worked at Playside for a few months doing art. On like a Kubo game, mobile game. And from there, then I worked at Well Placed Cactus, which is not to be confused with Assault Android Cactus, which is Tim's game.
Which is your first game, yeah.
But yeah, they were a lovely company, and I did like, I was like an artist there, but I kind of branched out into other things, like influenced kind of the design of the game we were working on, and I ended up also learning production and producing one of their white label projects, but also I actually filled in for a producer who had gone on a honeymoon for a month. So I was like, hey, I'm interested in production. Can I maybe do production? Because I heard you were looking for someone, and I'm already on the team doing art, and they were like, sure, and gave me 3 projects to babysit for a month, and I grew my first gray hair.
That will also happen. So, and I imagine those skills would have come in handy later on, right?
Yes, definitely. But I ended up, losing that job after 9 months. It was originally supposed to be just like a short contract, which then got extended, which then turned into a permanent position, which turned out to not be very permanent at all because the company got bought by Deloitte, and they no longer needed an artist. So. Yeah, like but they were very nice. They were always really nice. They were
great folks.
Yeah.
And so I imagine not long after that, you sort of stumbled upon this idea for this strange game, which we'll get into further along. But am I right in that timeline?
Yeah. So then I was like, you know what? It's like December, and I'm tired. Yeah. I have worked all these years, and I haven't had a break in a long time. I'm just gonna take 4 months off.
Sounds
and then,
smart.
Like. How many months later? 2 months, 2 or 3 months later, we were already working on Unpacking.
There you go. Isn't it funny how sometimes you're moving so fast and trying to do all these things, and then you take a moment to pause, and then it's like, oh, here we go. I've just come up with a concept for an IGF-nominated successful independent video game. All right, great. Well, thanks, Wren. So, Tim, now similar, like in the sense of being in studios, but very different studios than a Halfbricker. A mobile studio, right?
Yeah. So I grew up in Adelaide, and at the time, the only games company in town was Ratbag.
Right. And Adelaide is for those of you who aren't Australian, Adelaide is in South Australia in Australia, capital city there.
Yeah, so there was this one games company in town, and it was like, and I kind of knew from high school that I was like, I want to work in games. And at the time, game degrees weren't really a thing, so so I went and studied visual arts at University of South Australia, except it was pretty traditional, and so I was there kind of learning oil paints and mixed media and art history and stuff like that, and I was starting to like freak out that like, oh no, I'm wasting away. I'm not doing anything technical anymore. Like this is terrible. And so I actually after a year, I abandoned my degree and got and started a computer science degree. Like
hard pivot. I love it.
Yeah. I kind of did pivoted off and was like, so I went to computer science degree at University of Adelaide and did that for a year. And after a year of that, I was like stressing out so hard. I was like, I'm going to abandon this degree as well. So I've got 2 failed degrees as my basis for one in visual arts and one in computer science, which kind of nicely indicates the weird
the talent spectrum towards the tech artist specialization.
Yeah, there's a bit of predictiveness to that, and so then I started doing I worked as doing web design and like being a kind of generalist artist at this small software company.
Yeah.
And I studied 3D. I was going to be a character modeler. I'd figured it out. I'm going to make character models. So I put together my portfolio. I pitched it, like sent it into Ratbag, which is dream thing. And they said, we're trying to hire a junior cinematic artist. I'm like, that's me.
I can do that.
Animating, that's my thing.
Yeah.
Let me add some of that to my portfolio. Away we go, kind of thing. And I joined Ratbag in time to help them ship Dukes of Hazzard: Return of the General Lee. Proudly made in South Australia.
That's like me. One of my first games was Monster Jam Urban Assault, also proudly made in Australia.
Which ended up, not to foreshadow things, being Ratbag's final title. Which is weird because it was a fairly small part of my time at Ratbag. I went on to work on other projects and got quickly into character animation, like gameplay animation, and realized that I really enjoyed working with the gameplay programmers and kind of the design of it, actually, which again, we're foreshadowing where this is going. It's like animating cutscenes is pretty good, but animating characters that do stuff in the gameplay, that's really good. I'm good at this. Yeah. So,
and so then you wound up at Sega Australia, right?
Eventually. So next, Ratbag went under. We were acquired by Midway and then axed, as the fine tradition of Australian companies being acquired
purchased by American ones and then closed down.
This is also foreshadowing. So I moved to Sydney to work at Team Bondi on LA Noire.
Yes.
So I was animating like dialogue animations and all the I was working out the whole system for like body language tells. Things where he's like got to rub his ear when he's telling a line.
Which is one of the most amazing things about that game. That's sort of like they sort of nailed, and how you actually play that game is looking at those tells and everything.
Yeah, it was such a weird project to be involved in because it's like there was nothing else like it.
And it was a big production in Australia at the time. I remember.
I didn't see out the production. I left after a year and a bit, I think. And I moved up to Queensland, where I got a job at Pandemic, again animating, working on an unannounced project, and so that was really good. Pandemic was a really nice studio. Unfortunately, they got acquired by EA.
And then what happened?
And then, weirdly enough, Pandemic stopped being a studio that existed.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
And I briefly joined at this point. So I briefly joined Tantalus, which is a Melbourne company, and they were opening up a Brisbane like micro studio. It's like 6 people above a shopping center in a little incubator space. It was really cozy. I knew a few of the guys who worked together at Pandemic and stuff.
They're always the offices that you look at, like the periods in a studio that you look back on the fondest. It's like, we actually worked out of a closet for 12 months, and that was my best time in game dev.
But the best thing was, at this point, I was kind of I forget if I was like either kind of mid or senior animator at this point. But what they needed was they were just trying to hire a QA person. And I'm like, I can do QA. And the interesting thing is I joined that project and they were doing Cars Racerama for the DS and PSP. And they were like, oh no.
Pixar's Cars?
Yeah, Pixar's Cars. Yeah, it's a Disney project. It's like, oh no, this game with animated characters, we don't have an animator. And it's like, I was like,
I can do that.
Yeah. So for a period, I had periods where they paid me as an animator versus QA. So like,
love it
to animate all these, a bunch of the Win animations for the DS version of Cars Racerama, which is the third Cars game based on the first Cars movie, just to keep things straight.
When it makes that much money. Yeah.
Not to be confused with the third Cars movie, totally different thing.
Then you wound up at Sega, I'm imagining.
Yeah. So we actually shipped 2 games there in that short time before that studio went up.
And also Jeff and Sanatna from Witchbeam, you worked with them at Sega Australia. Am I correct in saying too? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Jeff was kind of heading on the way out because I joined Sega when they were working on London 2012, the official Olympics game, the one without Sonic in it.
Big mistake, clearly.
Yeah. Well, no, we see. So no, it was very important. Our game had to exist, so contractually, so that the one with Mario and Sonic could exist.
You walked so Mario and Sonic could run.
Yeah. And
very
butt
noble
bash.
of you.
And run very fast.
Run very fast. Yeah, gotta go fast. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that Sonic could challenge Robotnik in a foot race, and we could agonize over the results.
It's important work, really.
Yeah. I animated the ducks on one of the levels.
Isn't it funny? All these you animate the ducks, and then again, IGF nominated Unpacking.
No, I had to fight to animate the ducks because they were keyframed, right? So a lot of the stuff was mocapped, and it was that was fun. And
so all the animators are fighting over the ducks because they're the one keyframe thing.
Well, I just was like, I really want to do the ducks, and they're like, really? We're just gonna get one of like the juniors to do that. I want to do the ducks. Let me animate the ducks. And so if you look extremely closely, I think at the start of the rowing event, you can see these ducks get startled by the athletes and they fly off the river. And it's like, yes.
Well, there, you heard it here first, folks. What did you say right at the start of the rowing event?
Yeah, it's like
beautiful duck animation.
It's in the opening cutscene with the cameras like 5,000 miles away from the event. So
we all have these small victories in our career. It's really important. All right. So, and then let's talk a little bit now about Witchbeam before Unpacking. We'll spend a little bit of time on this because you actually released a game before Unpacking called Assault Android Cactus, which interestingly is almost like the complete opposite type of experience and game from Unpacking, but I'm sure that there are some links between them a little bit too. So tell me a little bit about Assault Android Cactus and your time there.
Yeah, so Assault Android Cactus was like just kind of my kind of love letter to twin stick frantic bullet hell shooters and stuff like that. And I'd worked on the prototype, and I showed Sanardan the prototype, and he gave me some invaluable design advice, kind of off the cuff that skewered my entire being. I think that I'm going to say this because he hates me saying it.
Good.
I think he looked at the game and he was playing it and stuff like that, and he was all like, this is going to be really good once you figure out what the game actually is. And he just said that like in an innocent way, but it was just like, it destroyed me and I had to rebuild myself stronger. And I was like, that's the guy I want to start a studio with. Cause,
that's exactly right.
Yeah,
the person who tells you the things that you don't want to hear, but you need to hear.
Yeah, and so Nart was like invaluable for like kind of guiding he has this amazing design sense, like for like instinct for what works and what doesn't, and how to correct things. And I had this kind of flair for just making things explode, and I was doing the programming and the art and all the things.
Yeah, a lot of things explode in that game, and it looks very good when they do explode as well. Yeah,
and like a lot of stuff from my animation time, right? Like it's like because good gameplay is good timing, and so like a lot of that is animation. Then we roped in Jeff. Like we actually hit up Jeff for advice on like how do we hire a musician.
Is that how you hire everyone? Just ask them for advice? And
weirdly enough, this is foreshadowing for some stuff on Unpacking later. But
Wren asked you for advice, and then you found yourself working together as well.
Well,
no. Actually, wait. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wren,
sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll
get there.
But so we hit up Jeff and to ask about like, when we're trying to hire a musician, like what should we be looking out for? Like how do we do this and stuff like that? And we're showing Jeff the project, and we're telling him what we and Jeff's all like, could I do it? And we're like, we absolutely can't afford you. Like,
yes, but cheaper is what.
Yeah. We look, we know you, we know your work. We can't afford that. And so instead, we founded a company with him. Like, so he's the third founder of Witchbeam. Which is great. So we're like, we the three of us basically, put together this really kind of high octane, crazy bullet hell.
Yeah, the exact words I would use, high octane. It was literally in my head.
Yeah, and it's like, it's funny. We made a game where you can't slow down. Like literally, the mechanic is there's a battery that's draining, and if you ever stop playing the game, you run out of battery and die. So which was great because it's great for like being hyperkinetic and exciting, but it's also like it's exhausting. The level starts and it's like keep playing. You want to rest later. You know, it's that kind of game. High score
very much a game, right? Like in the traditional sense. Also, so when did you ship?
So we started. So I think we multiple times. So PC, we left early access. So we entered early access, I think, towards the end of 2013, which is weird for the kind of game we were making. It wasn't a good fit for early access, but we kind of made it work. Kind of basically, yeah. And then we left early access in 2015, right at the end of 2015, and then came out on PS4 around 2016, and then Xbox in 2017 or 18 or something like 17. That. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And then Switch a couple of years later. So
2018. No, 2019.
There you go.
Yes.
So Wren, tell me, Unpacking. Like, I'm sure you've told the story a million times before, but for those who haven't heard it, like, the idea literally came about whilst unpacking, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So Tim and I got together. I'm going to say between the what was it? Between PS4 and Xbox releases of Cactus.
You mean we're going to out you as a couple here as well, right? So you got together as a couple. I love that your relationship, like milestones, are marked in between platform releases as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, this is why I know like Cactus's release dates very well, possibly better than Tim, because I'm just like, okay, I know I met him after the PS4 release,
but before the Xbox.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and I know that when they did the Xbox release, on that day, Tim had to come with me to hospital. Sorry, Tim, like literally launch night.
Yeah, that's a prioritization test if there's ever been one.
Yeah, I forgot to tell Nat what was going on. I literally just ducked out the door and said,
don't tell your co-founders. Yeah.
No, I was like, gotta go, Wren's in hospital, gotta go meet her, and just walked out the door while Nat was submission for Xbox. And he's just like, is she okay? What happened? And it's...
I had no idea what the date was. I didn't realize it was.
Yeah, how dare you actually? It's so rude. So Unpacking, you have this idea. You are a couple at this point in time when it comes to you.
So it happened as Tim was moving in with me. We were unpacking his stuff at my apartment, and sorry, I'm trying to think what's the best way to tell this. I've told this so many times, and suddenly it's like gone. Yeah. We were unpacking his stuff, and I was like thinking, actually, this feels kind of game-like, and this thought only came to me because Tim is the one who's always coming up with game ideas and telling me game ideas, like several a day, game ideas, story ideas. But he is very encouraging, and so he doesn't just like go, hey, I have all these ideas. He's like, do you have any ideas? Like, what do you think of this? Or do you have any concepts?
That's a great one.
Or like, have you ever thought of an idea for this sort of thing? And so he's like encouraging me to just kind of think about it in my day-to-day life. And so I was like, oh, there's something kind of game-like about unpacking things. You take things out of one box and empty it to unlock the box underneath, like unlocking. Okay, that's game-like. You complete sets of items between the boxes. It's like a collection. You've got environmental storytelling because you can learn a lot about a person from the items that they own. And in general, games are very much about creating order out of chaos.
Yep.
And in this case, very literally. And of course...
Unpacking is a very chaotic thing. I remember one of my favorite moments in Unpacking was when, in the first level, I'm going through things, I'm unpacking, I'm putting the shoes away, and I pull one shoe out and put it away, and then the box finishes, and the other shoe is not there. And I'm like, oh no.
We literally talked about this in our talk, this example.
That may be based on my actual packing strategies.
I was like, oh, so it's a realistic simulation game. Okay, yes. Right.
And then, of course, on top of all of that, there's the item Tetris aspect.
Yeah.
So it's like you've got... I love this because item Tetris is like you take this concept from a game of Tetris and fitting things together, and you go, I am item Tetrising things in my closet. And then you go, let's take this back into a video game. And it's like... Yeah, art imitates life, imitates art, imitates life.
It is there, right? Like the idea and the concept is there. It's very apparent. So then let's talk about from that point to, I would say, in hearing about your journey and like reading up on it from what I understand, the next sort of significant point seems to be like you had a prototype that looks very similar to the final game. Was that a big moment?
So the thing about the idea was what kicked it off, I think, was Stugan was opening applications.
Oh, that was before the prototype?
Stugan was the thing that gave us the deadline for the prototype.
Yeah.
Gotta love an external deadline.
Basically, like a week after we came up with the initial idea, we had the idea to have a story. And then shortly after that, Stugan opened its applications. And Stugan is a games accelerator program in Sweden.
Runs over the summer holidays, right?
Summer holidays in Sweden.
Yeah,
in
not
Australia.
our summer.
It's pitched as go to Sweden and go into a cabin in the woods for 2 months and work on your game. Yeah. And it's not a murder thing.
Yes. You work
it's not Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It's like actually making some games. It's such an, for those of you who are watching or listening, it's an incredible program. It's actually worth taking a look at. And also there's a lot of fantastically successful and interesting games that have come out of it too. So
yeah, I mean, even just in our year, like Adam Robinson Yu, he was in our year and then shortly afterwards released A Short Hike.
Yeah, there you go.
And we
won the Seamus McNally, I believe, didn't it?
Yes, yes it did.
In 2020.
Yeah, and pretty soon another game will come out. That'll be Silt. I think Silt is going to do great.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you got the prototype done in Stugan, and then you got it in your hands?
Well, we got an initial kind of prototype done and got it to like a vertical slice level, almost vertical slice, because we didn't have any sound yet.
Yeah, okay.
But
Jeff didn't fit in the suitcase.
He did not.
I actually brought this microphone, and in my plan was we'll just record all the sounds from our little cabin they put us in. And I'll just do it all. And so I didn't get to that at all.
Tim was like, how hard could it be? And I said, I'm telling Jeff.
No,
and he's
don't
like,
tell
Jeff.
Jeff.
Don't tell Jeff.
Yeah. I know how hard it is.
So we came there and our initial idea was like, we're going to make half of the levels that we had planned up to like a kind of alpha stage. And
bash through half the game.
Yeah,
it
bash
sounds like
through
a
half
classic game dev fairy tale.
Yeah, right? It's gonna be great. And then, by the end of it, we had one room. But we ended up, instead of going wide, we went deep.
Yeah.
And got this
Good
one
call.
room to like being just totally finished, other than the audio. And we were actually able to show that to potential publishers, and people could play it. It was a full level-ish that people could play. Yeah, a full room that people could play from start to finish and get like the whole game loop.
Yeah,
and
understand the experience, right?
Yeah, and I think it was the right call. And like we picked specifically like a kitchen for this because kitchens have a lot of items, but they're kind of impersonal relatively. We were like, we don't want to test the story aspect yet. We just want to test the mechanics, see that the game feels good to play. So Kitchen let us come up with literally like 70 items. And we made all of them, made the box mechanics and all that. And yeah, at the end of Stugan, had this nice little thing to show.
The beautiful thing about a kitchen as well for your first experience is that everyone has extreme opinions about where things should be in the kitchen.
Oh, yes.
I remember I dated someone once and they kept their cutlery in the cupboard, and that was the first major red flag for me. I was like, interesting.
Who does that?
So I didn't test it in Unpacking, but I would hope that at the end of a level, if the cutlery was in the cupboard, that it would flash red and white.
That is actually not allowed.
Yeah, it isn't allowed, right? Okay.
Like, I'm not even joking. We've loosened the rules a lot over time, but that's still in there.
Yeah, good. Thank you so much. You're doing really important work.
Validating you.
Yeah. So so now I'm really keen to actually hear about some of these things that ended up being quite fundamental to how the game comes together. So something that interested me when playing Unpacking was that red and white flashing of, as a player, I have all of this expression space and where I can express myself in regards to whether I want to put my cutlery in the cupboard or whatever it might be, or my books on the floor, which actually I think you're incorrect. I think books can go on the floor, but we'll save that for another time.
Those are crimes.
Unpacking crimes.
Unpacking crimes.
So like, how did you, was it during the prototype that you came up with some of these core mechanics, or how deep into the process did some of these sort of things fit their way into the game?
So we knew we wanted validation, like the red lines from kind of early on. Mm-hmm. It took us a while to implement, which was funny because we had this game where you just unpacked, there was no kind of judgment or any of that. And then we added the system. It's like, good news, everyone. We finally added this like crucial mechanic. And I think the first person
to play it was Philip from Stugan. It was one of the other Stuganeers, and It made him angry.
Yeah, it made him so angry, and we're like, oh no, like we've added this, like I've added this
so much
feature.
for our Zen game.
Yeah, I've added this feature at this, like, you know, had to program all this stuff in. I'm doing all this, like, you know, stuff to generate the red outline. It's quite technically tricky, but we've got it in and we've got it working, and it's like, I hate this game now. It's like, oh no, what do we do? Like,
yeah, I was like, oh no, Tim, we ruined the game. Maybe we need to take this out. And Tim was like, no, listen, I don't think we're wrong about this feature. I think maybe we just like are being too aggressive with it. Let's tone it back. And I'm like, okay, let's try that. And it helps because, like, you know, in the beginning when we were doing this, we were going, well, where does this item go? And it's like, it's where I put it, right? It's where I like to put this. That place makes sense. And so you had to kind of, instead of thinking, where would you put this, you think, where would Wren put this? And that's not what we want our players to do.
Yeah, right,
they don't know me. They don't need to guess what I think is the right place. So I was like, okay, what's a valid place for a cup? Well, it can be here, 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 or here, all these places. So we loosened it up a lot, and people liked it more and more.
We started thinking of it as, like, the other thing is in the kitchen level, like, at one point we had it so that basically the only way to finish the level was to shove everything in pretty much perfectly, so you didn't leave any empty grids kind of thing. Like, you had to lock all the pots and stuff.
Yeah, it's not like you weren't allowed to leave empty grids. It's just like it wouldn't fit otherwise. You had to be really careful.
Right, you had to really optimize.
Yeah, it was hard.
And we're like, that's the puzzle. And then people hated that. And like, we're like, maybe
it was just too hard.
Yeah, maybe like maybe that's not the puzzle. Maybe this is not a game about efficiently packing grids. Maybe this is a game about having a decision that the plates go up here because that's where they should go, and that's what people were reacting to. So
I wouldn't say they hated it. It was more just like they had trouble finishing the level.
It was a struggle.
Yeah.
And we're like,
it felt like a point of friction for
not good friction.
And solving it didn't feel fun. It felt like
frustrating.
Okay, I guess I'll fit everything in. It's like, you know how like a good puzzle game, if you complete a tricky challenge, you feel good, you feel aha, like it clicked. Instead, this didn't feel like that. It just felt like, well, I guess I put the plates and the pots in a way that fits now.
And the problem was also that it took away from players' ability to express themselves and put things where they like to keep them. So it's like if things had to fit really tight, it meant there weren't as many different solutions that they could do. And when it's something as personal as like organizing a kitchen or, you know, organizing a house in general, it's like people have, because they're so familiar with this, they have so many opinions and thoughts of where things should go. And if it's not arranged how they like, because they're forced to find a solution that where everything can fit, it's not fun anymore. They don't get to have the self-expression part, which we realized was very important to our game, and we wanted to lean into that more. So we added more spaces where people could leave things like tops of cupboards and like on the stove tops and things like that. And I think we reduced, maybe we cut out like a couple items or so and made it a little easier. Made some items, like we had like a really, really big pan and we made it a little smaller, things like that.
Yeah, it was all nudging stuff. But we had this realization that like the rules that people come up with in their head are more important than our rules.
Yes, right. So something that really interested me while I was playing Unpacking, and I was thinking about the two of you and the process of this and how iterative it must have been, is this balance between the player's expression and projection of themselves into the story. But then also the game actually has, like, the narrative really is above and beyond anything else, just a strong sense of character, as opposed to like a classic form of story, so to speak, where there's writing everywhere and, you know, law bombs and all this sort of stuff. And one of the most interesting things, we were just talking about the, you know, the red and white flashing validation lines. For me, one of the most interesting points of the story, and funnily enough, I watched a bit of a long playthrough to see how other people went, and there was 10 minutes where this person couldn't place their certificate for their degree or their qualification around the house, and it's just 10 minutes of them dragging it through every room. And that moment when they realize maybe the only place that it can go is under the bed, which funnily enough, when I'd played it before them, is where I put it too, is incredibly powerful. And so that type of narrative, which I think personally, for a little bit of flattery here for a second, I think is the greatest achievement of the game, is the narrative. And it's how systemically and mechanically it just tells a story seemingly so effortlessly. But of course, we all know behind the scenes, no doubt a lot of effort went into that. So where did you, tell us a little bit about that experience of finding the balance between not just the player expression from a mechanical point of view, but balancing it with this, what has turned out to be an incredibly strong and affecting narrative for people?
So honestly, that was part of, we talked before about like, oh, should we take the validation system out? And I was like, no, we can save it, we can salvage it, like we can just bring it back a bit. The reason why I was so intent on salvaging it is because I had like, that's what I was playing for, is that I reckoned we could use it in a few places. Like as long as it existed, as long as the player knows it's there. It's like those really good moments where you reuse something. It's Chekhov's gun, right? Like,
yeah, it's meant to be. Everything is the sum of its parts. It's meant to be there. Yeah.
Yeah. So like you're used to the red line when you leave something on the floor or when you put the toothbrush on the toilet, but suddenly it hits you like you can't leave this item in this case there's just like no wall space and stuff.
Yeah.
But like knowing that we like for the most part you can solve this stuff when you can't and you have to think about what that means, it can hit you, right? We've got that space to ramp things up and turn something that was actually fairly innocuous into something that suddenly feels sharp.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to think.
Yeah, just in regards to, because it is quite interesting, and not just from that mechanical perspective, but those moments where can you remember, Wren, where you had to sort of reach in and either you've spoken about opening up the player expression space so people can, put the things where they think that they want to put them. But can you remember moments where you actually had to reach in and say, hey, these things should go here from a character perspective or particular layouts or things like that? How did you achieve those character moments?
So it's kind of like Tim was saying that we wanted it to be like a general system that most of the time just makes sense to players. Like, oh yeah, I understand why I can't put this here. But then sometimes certain things only have to go in specific places. And I honestly, I can't remember who came up with the diploma moment. Like all of this, sorry, not the diploma moment, the diary moment, which is our first moment where someone can't put something somewhere.
Yeah.
Like they have to put the diary somewhere private.
Yeah.
But it was this idea that the character wouldn't want it just lying about. They'd want it hidden away, and it was supposed to go in the drawer. And we even had this whole idea of like the boxes hide the drawer before you empty them. You have to empty one box that was the one that contained the diary. So you definitely don't put it in the drawer until like later. So you put it aside somewhere, and it's definitely the wrong spot.
Yeah.
And then once you move the box, you might notice the drawer and might think, oh, maybe I can put the diary there. Most likely, you wouldn't immediately think that.
Yeah.
And once all the boxes are emptied, the validation system kicks in, and the diary shows you the validation system. And that's the first time you encounter it, and that's how we guaranteed that players would encounter it really early on.
Clever.
But we ended up straying from that a bit. It became less of a definite thing because players kept wanting to put the diary under the pillow. And we were like, well, you can't lift the pillow. And then we were like, wait, why not? Maybe you should be able to lift the pillow. And why is there only one spot for the diary? Like, that's also a valid space. So we could have two spaces. And it kind of struck us that we always wanted to have at least two places where anything can go. And so
that's great.
I'm pretty sure that is the case for every item in Unpacking. I could be wrong. But we strove for that. And so we made all the pillows liftable. First, just the one in the kids' bedroom, but then we had to make all the others lift to match because it doesn't make sense that we introduce a mechanic and then don't have it in the rest of the game.
Mechanically, the pillow is a door that makes a different sound effect.
That's very philosophical.
When we first implemented it, when Tim first implemented
it still made the door sound.
It made a door sound.
Fully functional. There we go, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff changed it quickly. So players, started putting the diary under the pillow. And we felt like that's a good compromise between the character's wants and needs and the player's wants and needs. There was always kind of it was like a tightrope walk to figure out like showing the character's needs and still letting the player express themselves. There was always this balance, and it's really interesting because like it was something that a couple of like publishers and investors actually brought up as like and they were smart, like they were correct. This was a point of contention of like, how do we balance this the player expression with telling a story ourselves? Isn't that going to get frustrating? And it could have, but somehow it ended up actually being better for that balance, because players both got to experience a specific story, but also got to project a lot of themselves into it.
Yeah, I think we knew early on that if it was going to work, we needed to make the player like live in the shoes of the character, because there's this kind of it's very easy in the first level, for instance, to be like, I'm unpacking my room, my stuff is going where I want it to go, but there's supposed to be enough clues. You're going like, okay, like we've got a dreidel, so okay, this is this character is Jewish. There's enough kind of hints. More on the second level, honestly, in the first level. But this is a girl. Like this isn't you. You don't get to like customize this game. Yeah. You get to empathize. You get to see all the connections. You might go like, I had a Tamagotchi. I had a Game Boy. But it's like it's not a simulator for you. You're in someone else's life. Yeah. And we knew that if we didn't make that connection, we wouldn't be able to do the storytelling. Like we didn't want to make a generic simulator.
Yes.
We wanted to make a story vehicle, and kind of walking that line was like, we always thought, this is, if we can pull this off, it'll work, and if we don't, it'll go to pieces. Yeah.
Well, Tim, you've spoken to me about the elegance of the game, and how it's a big drive for you, and I think that's just a fantastic way to describe where you ended up, and some very clever decisions like maintaining some type of a limited expression space while still directing the player towards what the character would do. Sounds like some great solutions. Interestingly, one of your big moments was that tweet, the first ever tweet, right? Am I correct? From the account at all? Or just like the first gift?
No, it was the first tweet from that account that wasn't a retweet of us, our personal accounts. Okay. Like when we first made this account, we didn't do anything for a bit, and then we just retweeted things that we had posted about it ourselves without any comment or anything, just retweets. And then so this was the first legit like tweet that this account made, and it was a GIF. And we'd been like thinking of doing it for a while. Like we had come back from Sweden. It was really not long after we'd come back from Sweden. We were about to do a show, we did a show in Brisbane like 2 days after we got back. We were so jet lagged. It was a terrible idea, but it's
one of the local meetups.
Go 43.
Yes,
yeah.
Okay, right.
A yearly one. So we had signed up while we were in Sweden, and so we were like, well, we got to do this, even though it's 2 days after we get back. Oh God! Like,
thanks, past Tim and Wren.
Yeah, like there's a whole story there, but I think let's not get into it, Tim.
No, I could see he was about to.
Let's not get into it. It's too off topic, but. We did that show, and like I think a couple days later we were like, oh hey, Tim, didn't you mean to do that GIF, like to make a GIF to post on the Twitter? And you're like, oh yeah, sure. And you like put together something really quickly, like you just put some items on some shelves and then just.
So, I recorded myself doing a complete unpack of the kitchen and then sped it up crazily so that we could smash
get
it
into
down
GIF size.
Yeah. But I love that you later I asked you about it and you were like, I wasn't really thinking too closely about where I put things, and that ended up being a real point of contention because Tim put the microwave really, really high up, and so the responses that we got to the GIF were like 90% is like people really loved it, and then like some
10%.
people who were like, I really hate this because they're like, a game about unpacking. What will they think of next? Doing dishes.
You're lucky someone didn't tag the FBI or something like that.
And then someone else, and then like the last category of people was like, what kind of a monster would put the microwave that high up? And I'm like, well, a very tall monster.
You're like, my partner.
I just put the microwave Tim height. I don't see what the
where he can reach. He's a whole foot taller than me. So.
Yeah, right. So it blew up, right? This tweet blew up, and it also found its way everywhere else. Reddit, like some of the GIF sites, all this sort of stuff. It just went absolutely wild. Walk us sort of, and also because this was, what year was this? This was quite a time before you actually released the game.
This was 2018, so this was the same year that we came up with it. It was right after Stugan, and less than half a year after about half a year after.
Were you kind of like, no, not yet. Don't get excited.
Yeah, we
everyone
were like,
don't get excited yet.
We were just like, what the heck? But it was really funny. I think my phone was also like being repaired the day that it was like blowing up with messages. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. It was absolutely insane.
The Unpacking account quickly ended up with more followers than I saw Android Cactus, which was kind of both
in 2 days.
Yeah, both like it's like one tweet, and it's like, my entire 3 years of like spruiking a game.
And then you unpack one kitchen, and there it is, 3 years of indie marketing done.
Yeah. And like, I thought we were fairly decent at the Cactus Twitter stuff. But.
Yeah, so that really went off. It really took off. But the thing is, this was a side project. This was going to be just me and Tim doing a little hobby thing on the side. He was doing prototypes for potential.
I was porting to Switch.
True, you were porting to Switch, but you were also working on a lot of prototypes, like and trying to decide what Witchbeam's next project will be once you're done with the Switch port. And I was like, well, I'm going to get back to freelance soon. And when we were coming back from Sweden, actually, like, I still remember this, we were having talks about, like, what should I do with my career when we get back? And we were talking about, like, moving overseas potentially, because I was like, I don't feel like I have anything in Brisbane. And Tim felt like he wanted to, you know, if he was going to move away from Brisbane, that he would want to go somewhere bigger, like the
More
US
job
or Canada
prospects
or Europe. And so we were actually talking about it pretty seriously. I basically thought I'm going to find some kind of job and do that. And Unpacking would be the side project. And then the game took off. And we had suddenly publishers in our DMs.
Sliding into your DMs, like the creeps they are when a GIF goes off.
Yeah. Hey, I saw that GIF.
Yeah, like legit, like 3 publishers in that one or 2 days.
Yeah, wow.
And we were like, wow, okay, I guess this is real. And also at the same time, when we were at that Go423, the local show, we ran into a representative from Screen Queensland. Who was there and was like, hey, have you thought of submitting this to like our grants program? And we were like, okay, when's that due? And it's like 10 days. It's like, okay, so I worked full time for a week on this application. And we got like some state funding. We had like a nice chunk of money that gave us enough to like hire an artist for 1 year, basically.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so we're like, I guess this is a real game now.
Was it, and at this point, was it officially a Witchbeam game, or was it still a side? When did that happen? When did the conversation happen about like, all right, well, let's make this Witchbeam's next game?
Yeah,
at that point, right?
Yeah, at that also, yeah, it was the funding, I think, that kind of made it like, okay, we should do this, because up to that point we had like, it was like a Tim and Wren game kind of thing, and then it was like a Tim and Wren and Jeff game. It's like, this is starting to get a bit long. And then it was like, and obviously for a funding thing, it's so much you need a company involved. And so the choice at that point was that we're either going to set up a new company to like handle Unpacking.
Right, to be eligible for the funding, they needed to fund a company, not just Tim and Wren. Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, and just hand us the cash in a alleyway. It's fine.
Come along.
It's a lot easier to do that with an existing company than being like, well, let's set up a new company this week.
And yeah, that was an option. Obviously, like a lot of games do that, where you kind of encapsulate the game in a company and stuff like that. But to me, it made most sense to bring it under Witchbeam, because not only would we be able to use the structure that already existed and the connections we already had, but like that's the point, right? Like Witchbeam should enable projects and cool stuff. And so like, obviously discussed it with all the founders, and 2 of us were already working on the game directly, so it was an easy sell. But no,
you're already casually dating already, right?
No, I'm kidding. Nart was really supportive.
Nart's always been extremely supportive and of Unpacking, and like kind of believed in it more than we did, which is kind of funny.
He actually did, yeah.
But yeah, and so
he saw the success before you did.
Yeah, yeah. He was kind of like, oh, this is going to do really well, and we're like, oh, I like your confidence, but okay. And so it just, and the funding thing was what cinched it. It was like, okay, we need obviously it needs to be under a company structure. I think it should be a Witchbeam game, and kind of.
So at this point now, it's a Witchbeam game. You've got publishers in your DMs. You've got some funding from Screen Queensland. Is that there?
And we've got like, I don't know, like 12,000 followers all of a sudden.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So now it actually has to happen as well. What's the next big milestone for you?
Yeah, it's funny. It's like, so the game looks finished, right? And you've got all the things.
Release it. Let's go.
Yeah, what's left? And it's like, 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years of development are left.
Did you know, because it's the classic thing, right? Like no indie knows how long their game is really going to take. I don't, probably all AAA studios too, but how long did you think you had to go at that point?
A year and a half.
Yeah, classic. It's always double,
half.
right? Yeah.
And this was after me going like, whatever, how long of you think it is, you have to double it because that's how it works.
It wasn't just you. I was also reading like the. I had just read the indie game dev
handbook, the business book.
Indie. I forgot the name. Indie business.
The game dev business handbook or something. Yeah.
Game dev business handbook. That's the one. Sorry. Apologies to Mike.
To the mics. A great book. Fantastic.
It's so good. Yeah. And so
So you're ready to go. You're ready to start.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I know how dangerous it is to underestimate. I'm going to estimate it like as well as I can and like double and whatever. And like I'd also gotten that advice like at Half Break from like Luke Muscat and stuff. Like I was like, I'm ready. I know how to do this. And it's like, no, still severely underestimated.
So let's jump forward a bit in time. So what point did you sort of reach an alpha or a beta? And I think what point as well, because I'm sure it happened, right? Did you realize, whoa, there's too much game here? Were you working too much? Did you, how did you sort of reconcile the amount of time it was taking, and where did that sort of sink in?
Yeah, so we had the alpha is an interesting one because at this, once we were in full development, we decided to publish with Humble Games, and so we were working with Humble, and they wanted our production schedule and kind of were checking in on us and kind of and this kind of stuff, and we had this alpha deadline that was like that was
coming
set.
up.
Yeah, there was this alpha target that was set, and as we approached it and realized that we weren't going to meet it, we were doing the responsible thing and being like, we're not going to meet this, we need to push it out. And it was kind of weird because it feels like you're telling them that your homework's not going to be done in time. It's like, but hey, FYI, it's not going to happen. We're going to kind of move this out. And we had this, we kind of went through a bit of a dark period where
it was really stressing us out.
Yeah, and we were like kind of crunching. We were just working too hard, to try to hit this. Oh no, we've already had to move the alpha a couple of times, and it hurts every time we have to bring it up. And we kind of had this
realization that actually, why is it important that the alpha date is here? Like, it's actually a really meaningless, arbitrary date that we set well in advance as like a vague target. We weren't like even close to like running out of money, or like, the current timeline that we had wasn't like, this is all the runway we have. We actually had more runway than this. And so we were like, why are we setting this arbitrary deadline that's really stressing us out? Why not just say alpha is done when the set of features is done? Alpha is a set of features, not a like time deadline.
Yeah, and this was a huge kind of paradigm shift for us actually, because we're getting stuff from Humble who are like trying to help manage the project, right? And it's kind of like get back a bit. And they're like, can you cut some features? You're going to have to like manage scope. And we're looking at that, and like the game is very carefully crafted, right? Like everything is holding everything else up. There's nothing you can just kind of lob out to save time. Like,
the thing is, like, the scope never changed. It like maybe things got a little bit more detailed at most, but like it was always the same number of levels, the same kind of same scope. And finally, we were like, you know what? There's nothing we want to cut. And there's no reason that we can't move our timeline. Like, really, it's just because it feels bad to move the timeline.
Yeah.
So let's move the timeline. Let's say this is done when it's done. And after that, we know there's marketing considerations. We know that, like, eventually they need to have, like, solid dates so that they can plan things in advance. And so we didn't want to leave them hanging forever. But we were like, once we're approaching alpha, we can give you an exact date for alpha. And we can give you all of the dates beyond that at that point.
And I imagine them trying to assist with management and things like this is also out of concern for you hitting this deadline, which you've both agreed for, and your own health and everything too. And
Absolutely.
so it seems like natural advice to say, well, hey, if we are going to hit this date, and you're working this hard, let's remove some features or do those things.
Yeah, and like it was part of consideration for our runway as well. Like the amount of money we have left to
beyond
burn.
alpha, right?
Yeah. And in our case, it was actually kind of funny. Our runway got longer because remember I was doing the saw Android Cactus Switch port, and while it wasn't a smash hit on Switch, we were earning money that wasn't accounted for in the original kind of budget. So like our runway was kind of creeping out a bit, and I was like, okay, this is good. This is it, because I didn't account for that because I meant and but the funny thing was that when we, like Wren said, like once we realized that our alpha was a set of features, not a date, it like helped us.
We got faster and we got like healthier and we got
Isn't
happier.
that amazing how that works, right?
Yeah, by taking off that sense of like that this pressure for this fixed date, we actually worked pretty efficiently and didn't go that much over what we
were. We ended up like finishing it. Once we were like, okay, we're getting close, we said we'll be done in like 2 weeks or something, or in I think it was like 1 month. We'll be done in 1 month, and we were done in 1 month, and we were like, all right, beta will be this time. We can give you a set date, and we gave them a set date, and this will be when release will be. And I think it only moved by 2 weeks from there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Much more knowns, I guess, at that point in the project too. So, and whilst this is all going on, all of this stuff, you also have this game out there in the wild in regards to everyone knowing about it. It's gone viral. Am I correct in saying Vic Tran also came and helped out with community management?
Yeah. So that was all very interesting. So Tim, were you telling this story to?
No. I'd done my research.
Okay, because. Yeah, because you were saying how we tend to hire people by like asking them how to hire people, and then they're like, "Can we do it?"
Yeah,
that happened with Victoria.
Right. So Victoria's community lead at Inner Sloth, so Among Us and stuff like that, and then also Kit Fox Games before that. And so during this period, she's helping out.
So she joined in. I think it was quite late. It was so we were doing this on our own, doing all the community and social stuff until I think it was June. Something like that. It was until right around E3, and then of 2021. So Victoria helped us with the very, very important final push, like our last 6 months of 2021. The game released in November, so she like stuck around for about a month after that. And she put together our Discord. Like working for us 1 day a week on the side while doing Among Us. Like I don't know how Victoria does anything she does. She's amazing.
She probably feels the same way about the two of you as well, I'm sure. But incredibly impressive.
It's amazing working with her.
So the interesting thing about that though is that she's come on 6 months later. The thing I'm interested in is how did you maintain the interest for this game? Did it just happen? Was it just, all right, Tim, it's time, just do another GIF and put something in a controversial position and let's go, let's keep them interested?
So we kind of came up with a whole strategy for that. Right, the way I thought about it is you need a heartbeat. Like we can't pump out content because it takes so long to make. So we can't keep releasing new stuff. So we have to really pace ourselves, but know that we're going to have to do this like month on month. Like ideally post maybe 1 or 2 things. Like
once a week, once every 2 weeks. The interesting thing with Unpacking as well is that it's a very, very dense game. Like it's small and very full of content.
Yeah.
So you can show a screenshot of one room and spoil an entire level.
Right, of course, yeah.
And so we're like, how do we show content from this without like going, well, here, that's like several months of work wasted in this one screenshot. Like now, how do we have another screenshot for next week?
Yeah.
that was a tough balance. So we like came up with all kinds of ideas like zooming in on specific sections or like taking, say, art assets like various items and putting them in a little diorama on like a little background backing that we made for them. Yeah, things like that.
Also, the toilet roll one was, I think, my favorite GIF.
So this
was teamwork.
This is like, I'm a big fan of like you kind of experiment, right? Like you throw things at the wall and see what sticks. And also, like I think the way I used to describe it was that you want to post something that kind of outrages people a little bit, right? to engage them. It's you want to provoke them.
One GIF that Tim made that I really liked was like, good news everyone, now you can do this. And it was when we introduced 4-way rotation for items, because up until then they only just flipped one way. And so he took a fork and opened the cutlery drawer and put it in backwards and then closed it.
Specifically, I opened the cutlery drawer. Everything was aligned correctly. I picked up the fork, rotated it backwards, put it back down, and closed.
Good news! Now you can do this.
Yeah.
So that's Tim's posting style.
It's good.
The toilet rolls, I'm going to take credit. I was like, we need to
explain what the toilet roll is for folks who don't know.
So this is at the start of the pandemic, and the toilet roll buying panic was at peak. And I was like, Tim, we need to do something with unpacking with the toilet rolls. Like, just have a room full of pictures. Like, there's full of toilet rolls all over the place, and be like, just coming back from the shops, you know. And Tim was like, maybe we can make it a GIF, and I was like, oh, genius. So I made this GIF. It took a bit more work than it looks because you always run into bugs at the weirdest times. So it turned out like certain items just refuse. I had to repack.
Trying to sneak back into the box.
Yeah, I had to repack the boxes.
Like real unpacking as well.
Yes. I had to repack the boxes in order to make the GIF, and they had like a few random items packed in them from other rooms, and so I kept taking out these toilet rolls, and then suddenly a bra would pop out, and I'm like, no. Stop! And Tim would fix it, and then it would still happen. I'm like, Tim, why does this bra keep coming back? So yeah, this GIF took a while to make, but it was good and it did well.
Amazing. And so, how did you go then? Now that you changed that the sort of the paradigm shift of how did you go coming up to launch? How hard was it to get this game out the door? Because like you say, it's a small game, and you're also a very experienced team. Like all of you got like a decade plus or something like that. In some of you in AAA and things like that, and making this small quote unquote little indie game, but it's very, very dense. I mean, did the bra keep popping back up? How hard were you working towards the end there?
So that one was actually an interesting bug to do with like items that were packed from other rooms but in a different box. So you could kind of say like this item and it's assigned to a box in another room. And the way the linking worked, my system was like kind of getting confused and trying to repair that linking on the hood. So it was actually like this kind of really squirrely bug that it was kind of manifesting with the toilet paper stuff. So it's like development, it's fun. But funnily enough, I think the biggest experience came from like, for me at least, was from Cactus, because like working in a studio, you have so many hands, everyone's handling things, like bugs get squashed down as a whole team kind of thing. And on Cactus, like everything hit us. Like, you know, if it was, hey, we put this into submission and Nintendo says that this button isn't the right, it's on me. I have to go change the button graphic, and then I have to do the new build, and I have to upload it to the dev portal and stuff. And it's like, and so that really, that for me at least gave me a really good insight of the kind of things that could go wrong, like the category of errors that I was looking for. Because, you know, the problems that you've seen before, you're going, not going to do that again, but you're going to run into something entirely new, but in the same space, right? Like
you'd already shipped a game on multiple platforms.
Yeah. And you'd you'd ship some I was thinking of the Super Jump. What's the?
Oh.
So you had some experience shipping.
Some, but not heaps. I think the hardest part for me was the big slog in the middle, not the beginning, not approaching the end. Those because in the beginning it's still exciting and new and everything is happening and you're coming up with ideas. In the end, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
You know what you're doing. You just got the list of things, the bugs, the remaining tasks.
It's like starting to get smaller finally. Yeah. But in the middle, it's just a slog. You can't see the light on either side. Yeah. You're just like in the thick of it, and it looks like it will never end, and you will work on this project forever. And it was funny because we set out to make this very specific game. We had 7 of our 8 levels planned from the first week. We obviously elaborated on them.
Yeah, of course.
But it was we had this set of features. We had the design really nailed. It wasn't. We strayed very little from our path. But then we still took 3 more years to make it. It was just content takes forever, and especially when you're a small team. So. Most of the time it was just on art. It was me and Angus, and mainly I was mainly doing art direction, and Angus was doing the art, and I was doing all the level design as well. Like I packed every box in the game myself. I drew every room like first pass. Like there was just so much, and so yeah. It was just all like Tim had like this mantra of like one foot in front of the other that I adopted and felt like it was really, really helping me. Just like definitely like my experience with a bit of project management, both from Well Placed Cactus and from even when I was at Halfbrick, I kind of picked up some things because we had a team that worked really, really well and had like really good production kind of habits.
Yep.
So I also was the producer for our team, and we had sprints and milestones, and so we just broke things down into like, okay, this 3-month period, this 2-week period, and then every single day we had like I was really grateful to have a team that was all local and that we were working like full time together pretty much. So every single morning we'd have stand up and go through, you know, what you did yesterday, what are you doing today, are you blocked on anything, and all that. And it really helped keep things on track and helped keep me feeling like I'm held accountable as an employee, even when I'm like running things. And it just helped keep kind of a steady pace and help feel like we were part of a team, even though we were all working remotely. And so I just chipped away at it like this
And
for
then at
years.
some point the clouds part and you can see the summit of the mountain and
Exactly.
Okay. So something else that's quite impressive is the amount of like nominations and also awards already that you've won. Game of the Year, I mean, you beat out Halo Infinite for Game of the Year over at Eurogamer, which is
That was wild.
Yeah, which is amazing.
That was really funny.
It became a running joke how many ones we've been on with Forza 5.
Forza Horizon 5.
Yeah.
There are rivals
They keep
now.
showing up on the same game lists, like 1 or 2 indexes above or below us, and yeah.
Yeah, it's like, these games are totally similar. Scope, team size, budget.
You should do like a collaboration,
Topic.
like a car detailing collaboration or something.
It's our contemporary Forza
Yes.
Horizons, yeah.
But you are nominated for an IGF Excellence in Narrative, I believe. You're also nominated for a BAFTA in narrative. Am I right in saying
Yes.
that?
And the GDC.
Yeah, right. Okay,
Also
so
narrative.
but it is quite, as I've already said, it is quite impressive what this game manages to do from a narrative standpoint. And so, for yourself, Wren, what do you think about the future of narrative in video games? And what this game is saying is it's clearly a very personal game for you as well. You can just see that from actually playing the game and experiencing it. Just tell us a little bit about what you would love to see from narrative in the future.
Well, I think games are a really, really interesting medium that can do a lot of things that other mediums can't. Like each medium has its strengths. And I think that, a lot of games try to do film in the game. And it's like, that's not what games are good at. Games are experiential. You experience things through them. So why not use that to your advantage? And especially indies, like we don't excel at like doing fancy cutscenes and like things that require a high budget or a large team. Just do the things that games are good at, like that the medium allows. And also just like try to do something inspired by something outside of games. Like I think that's something I want to see more of. Like I think that it's always very clear when games draw inspiration from
Games.
from games versus other places in life. So I think the more we like reach outside of our regular domain and the more like different voices that we hear in games, like the more interesting narratives that we'll come up with for games.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tim, we've spoken as well about your love for the elegance of Unpacking, and it is something that's incredibly apparent when you play it. Like you say, it's a small title, but it's very dense, and it does feel like everything is a sum of its parts. That there is almost no craft to the game. What what was the most important aspect of that for you? And were you watching that throughout the piece? Was there it sounds like you knew exactly what the game was from the start, but what were the things that sort of crept in, and what were the things that you cut sort of moving through the game? And those decisions of like, this is a gamey thing, like the sticker collection, but it fits, it works.
Yeah. I think there was this kind of feeling of like, less is more. So everything that went into the game had to really have a reason for being there, and that was kind of the number one thing. And part of that was just because like things are expensive, right? Like in animation, if you can just not use an animation, then you've made the game better, because the animations that are in the game are going to get more love, and you can balance them better. And it's the same principle where like everything we do in the game is in Unpacking is there for a reason. Every item is an opportunity to tell something. It's like it almost sounds like a bit of a joke where you're going like, oh, you put a spatula in the game. Why is there a spatula in the game? It's a kitchen. But why this spatula? Is it a new spatula? Did she buy it new? Is it a used spatula? Did she get it from her parents? Did she take it with her when she moved? Like there's an opportunity there, and you might as well make use of it, because you have to make it anyway. So everything becomes like multi-layered.
Is it a fancy spatula? Is it a cheap plastic one? Is it her favorite color?
It's like use all the parts of the animal, right? It's that old.
Yeah. That's like a good way of putting it. It's like, and I like to think that Cactus did something similar as well. It was very like, there was no kind of design in that was just like for the sake of it. Everything had a function. Every color choice was kind of aligned to like, yellow means player damage, red means can damage both enemies and players, and that kind of like, it was color coded, it was visually signposted. Every enemy type had a different locomotion type to like get that level of silhouette identity. And then you just transfer that to taking things out of boxes, and you go like, everything should have a purpose and a function, right?
Well, that's the thing I said at the start. They're very, very, very different games, but I can see sort of interestingly, though, even though it may have started with the two of you in your room, and then taking it to Witchbeam, you can see the lineage there in regards to like the type of decision making or game making philosophy that you all have there. So what is next? You've had this fantastic success. I guess next is just going to be collecting all of your awards that you're going to win. No, you're up against some fantastic competition as well. So
we're up against Inscription. I think in every single category of IGF. Just like no pressure.
Yeah. So you, Inscription, Forza, all the rest. But like obviously you've got a little bit of that going on. What else can you tell us? So how much is Unpacking? How much is taking a break? Do you have ideas for new games? What's next?
We've still been on Unpacking up until now, where I think things are starting to wrap up. But right now is the awards. We're going after this. We're going to the BAFTAs.
The world tour.
After that, it's like we're gonna actually go back to Australia, go to Melbourne for a little trip, and then come back to the UK for like a conference. A convention that we got invited to. So we're doing that, and then got invited to something else in another country. So we're booked till August. End of August.
Right. Okay.
So after that, for me, I actually don't know yet. Yeah. I have wanted to take a break since we finished. So far, it has not been possible. But, it's like we're doing really fun stuff. I absolutely cannot complain.
Yeah, of course.
It's all fun and it's interesting, but also, like, we're really burnt out.
Yeah, a break sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I am, like, done for a little while. I want to recover. Yeah. And once I do, well, we'll see.
And what your last game idea came from being on a break as well, right?
Exactly. So it's like it's a healthy time.
And the interesting thing is like, so Wren like worked with Witchbeam to like make the game. She's the IP owner, in the kind of thing sense. So it's kind of a collaboration. But it means that Wren gets to kind of like you got a lot of freedom there, right?
Yeah, that's it. She can just jettison her boat from the dock. And
it was fantastic to work with Witchbeam and like with Tim especially. It was like, this was an amazing experience.
Yeah. Let's just make, it's really cute. We're a couple. Let's make a little game together. Yeah.
It's like, it turned into this monster, but like, it was amazing. It was so much fun.
And the relationship, it sounds like it thrived, not just survived as well.
It worked out. Like, I had some reservations before, I was a little nervous. I've heard tales, but like it actually went fine.
Do you have any tips for making a game with your partner?
tread carefully. No, seriously.
Was that to me or was that the advice?
Just to everyone. No, that's the advice. No, it's like, honestly, it's a lot because you realize that it aligns a lot of things, because normally if you have a stressful day working on a problem, you can come home and be like, oh, I had this stressful day. And instead it's like, I had this stressful day. And it's like, I know, I was there.
Yeah, me too. Like we both had the same thing happen to us.
Yeah, and it means that like, it kind of, it blends things together, and it's like, that's a risk. It puts pressure on things, and it's like, so yeah.
I would say my advice is like what we did at the start, where we wrote up a contract, like, to be safe. We wrote up a pretty serious contract of like what happens in any case that really protects both of us and the project. So like in case we were like, we had to think about situations that we really didn't want to think about, you know, like we'd only been dating for a year and a half, and or maybe 2 years by that point. And we had to think, what if we fought and broke up and things got so bad that we didn't want to ever see each other again, but we have this game that we're working on. What happens then?
Yeah.
And like, we had to cover all of these different circumstances in the contract.
I mean, and this actually goes for working with friends as well. Like, you know, if you're going to start a games project, you should always have like a kind of contractual understanding of like who owns what, how it's going to go down, with the eye of like, what happens if you do suddenly get into fist fights in the office? Like, does the IP just become like nebulously owned by no one? That's a bad idea.
Yeah,
and it sucks, right, to think about. And
I would say like the thing is, you know, some people might think like, oh, this is like don't you guys love each other enough that this won't happen? Like if you think you love each other,
protect everything, right?
Yeah, but it's like some people think, you know, like we get along, everything will be fine because we're friends. It's fine. It's like, no, because you're friends, it's not fine. Because you love each other, you will do this. You will protect yourselves and each other by having this contract, because you don't know what the future holds.
Well, on that note, considering that tomorrow night is the IGFs, best of luck for the IGFs, the GDCAs, the BAFTAs, whatever else you're up against, Forza and Inscription, everything in. You both should be incredibly proud. I know as a fellow Australian that I'm incredibly proud of you. It's been amazing watching this journey. Thank you so much for joining us today on Game Maker's Notebook.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, everyone.